So the last chapter of One Piece that I read was chapter 1154, and at the end of that chapter, that was when Rox was revealed, and we saw a little bit of his crew, and then that's when it was announced that he was the father of Blackbeard. So that was the last chapter that I read, and then I didn't read for like about a month. So we'll be covering 4 chapters in this video. It's going to be 1155 all the way up until the most recent one, which is like 1158 or something like that. Oda has been writing some really good chapters recently. Specifically, I'm talking about everything with Loki and how he grew up, and I'm really thinking about that one panel of him climbing up the mountain after being thrown down because they thought he was a curse, and he's climbing up and he's crying and stuff, and all he wants is his mother's love and all that stuff. Pretty sad stuff from Oda, but he normally knows how to get you right in the feels. So chapter 1155 kicks off, and the first thing that I want to talk about is Rox invading the Chamber of Flowers, which is at the center of the Holy Land, and is probably the best feat that we've seen from any One Piece character. I'm assuming that to get there, you have to get past probably the Gorosei, and Imu himself has to not notice you. So probably the best feat that we've seen from any character thus far. And it's stated in the title card that no one has ever got this far before, and then no one has ever done it since. I think it's fair to say that Blackbeard will probably also enter the Chamber of Flowers, and I'm gonna get into why I think so. Later on in the chapter, Rox mentions how this is just the prologue to his life. Now, within the context of that conversation, it sounds like he might just be talking about the creation of Hachinosu and then creating and ruling over a pirate island and creating a pirate paradise. However, I think it's much more likely that Rox is living on inside of Blackbeard somehow, and this current life is actually really the prologue to his life. So I think, or maybe it's like both, it's like a double entendre kind of thing, but I think that's more so what it's hinting at. Most commonly in One Piece, you see kind of things of like inherited will, of, wills being passed on from one person who usually dies over to the next, but I don't think that's the case in this scenario. If the soul of Rox is literally inside of Blackbeard's body, which is what I think, and it's probably what most people think. I don't watch much One Piece content anymore, so I'm not really sure what the community consensus is on all this stuff recently. But I would imagine this is what most people are thinking, right? That Rox has somehow, his soul is probably also inside of his son, Blackbeard, and this would explain a lot of the things that we see and that we hear about Blackbeard. One of the things about Blackbeard that a lot of people say is how he never sleeps. I believe it was like Shanks, or I think Buggy said this to Shanks in a flashback. And that would make a lot of sense. If you have 2 people living in the same body, then of course it would appear that you'd never sleep, because while one soul is sleeping, the other soul could just be awake and active and doing other things. This would also explain how on Jaya, the first time that Luffy meets Blackbeard, and then Blackbeard goes on his whole speech about how a man's dream never dies and all that stuff. I think it's Zoro, but both Luffy and Zoro recognize that Blackbeard is more than one person, and they refer to him in like a plural way. I don't know if they say them or something like that, but they refer to Blackbeard as if there is more than one person, and Nami is confused because Nami is like, was he with somebody? Like, what are you talking about? But this again adds more validity to the fact that there is probably 2 souls in that one body. And of course, if there's 2 souls residing within one body, this would have, of course, explained how Blackbeard is the only person to have 2 devil fruits, right? Because if you eat 2, you like explode or something. But if you have 2 people, then each one of them can have their own devil fruit, like independently. Going back to the chapter, we meet the rest of Rox's crew currently. And aside from the people that we already know, like Whitebeard and I don't really care about anyone else. We know Whitebeard, we know Stussy, we know Golden Lion, Shiki, right? So they're kind of the only people I care about. There's like 2 other people right now. I don't care about them. Of course, we know later that Big Mom joins. We know later that Kaido joins. We know later that Captain John is there as well. I think that's his name. But yeah, so right now, like the other people, I don't care about them. We learn a lot about Rox through his dialogue, and he appears to be also an anarchist like Blackbeard, and that's not too surprising because, I think he's like literally in his body. Perhaps a bit hedonistic as well. He mentions that no authority in this world can last forever, and yet he still shoots for the top, which I think is pretty interesting because generally in series we see when an antagonist is like shooting for the top to be like the most powerful, the most influential, whenever an antagonist has a goal like that, they generally do everything in their power to stay there, right? So literally like Emu, but you can look at a whole bunch of other series. I don't know, maybe like Muzan from Demon Slayer, or I don't know, literally anywhere. My Hero, what's his name? One for all for one. I mixed them up, but the bad guy, right? Generally, antagonists do everything in their power to try to, keep their power. And Rox seems to recognize that no authority lasts forever, but yet he still shoots for it. And I think that's pretty interesting, and I quite like it. Chapter 1156. We meet a lot of characters this chapter. We meet Empress Gloriosa, who has a huge crush on Roger, but Roger keeps ignoring her because he has eyes for Shaki. So if you don't remember Shaki, Shaki is the one who's with Rayleigh on Subodhi Archipelago. So Shaki was actually a Kuja pirate. I think there was like a lot of theories about this, but I don't think it was ever confirmed up until this point. So that's pretty cool to learn. We also learn in her title card that Shaki got to be Empress of the Kuja Pirates, so that's pretty interesting to learn, and that's pretty cool. Not much else I really want to talk about this chapter. I think we just got to meet a lot of the characters, a lot of the interactions between them, and I think that's really the most fun and most important part to read this chapter. We cut back over to Pirate Island, and we see the rest of the Rocks crew. So now Big Mom and Kaido are there when we cut back, and then Captain John is there as well. But like I said, not much I really want to talk about. Just really good character interactions all around, and it's really nice to see all of these characters have a dialogue in a way that we've never seen before. But moving on to chapter 1157, again, not too much that I want to discuss this chapter. We get to see a lot of the old characters in their youth again, so this time we see a lot more of the Marines, Garp, Sengoku, Admiral Kong, Otsuru, all of those people. So again, nice to see a dialogue between all of those old characters. We get to see Harold, and he's still continuing to struggle with getting the world government on his side and being accepted into the world government. And he's really trying hard to change how Elbaf is perceived. Shaki is no longer Empress, so pretty short-lived for her, I think maybe only a few years. And she opens up a bar on Hachinosu, so that's pretty interesting. The most interesting thing that happens is at the end of this chapter, where the world government give Harold a call, and they give him the option of joining the world government only under the condition that he kills Rox. And a bit of a spoiler, but in the next chapter, we actually see that Harold does fight Rox and does fully intend to kill him, which is really disappointing, honestly, because just that chapter 1157, we see Kaido speak kind of ill of Harold, or he kind of badmouths him, and Rox like kicks him or punches him or something, and he's, Rox doesn't let that fly, and he tells Kaido that he'll get rid of him if he keeps badmouthing Harold. So Rox was, he stood up for his friend. He really sees Harold as a friend despite their different ways of, approaching the world government, and he holds Harold in high regard. So I really think it sucks to see, Harold actually attempt to kill his friend. I understand the difficult situation that Harold is in. He wants to achieve a lasting peace for Elbaf, but their history is just riddled with violence, and there are people out there who still don't trust them. Throughout Harold's voyages, he goes and he has conversations with people, and some of them are just like, hey, like, sorry, like, we just don't fuck with you. Like, we're racist. And that kind of sucks to hear, you know what I mean? My problem with Harold is that his attempt to solve Elbaf's past that has a lot of bloodshed is with more blood, is by killing his friend. And so Harold appears to be kind of like an ends justify the means kind of person, where, if he has to, I guess bear that burden of killing his friend and like killing one to like potentially like save many by allowing the Giants to go out and do good, he's gonna go for that option. Giving him the opportunity to change the culture of Elbaf, he's gonna go for that option. Whereas Rox appears to, he just doesn't agree with that. He doesn't, he's a very means-driven person, and so yeah. Moving on to chapter 1158, I think it's time that we have a very serious conversation about the way that Rayleigh is moving. I mean, he got that note, from Shaki, come and make me yours. I mean, I didn't know he had it like that. Like, I really didn't know that he had it like that. So, I gotta put more respect on his name. I already gave Rayleigh a lot of respect, you know what I mean? Trained Luffy, taught him all that hockey stuff, clashed with Kizaru. He had a lot of my respect, but I didn't know he was in his bag like this. So, the utmost respect to Rayleigh. So, aside from Rayleigh, Garling refers to someone who we can assume to be Imu as the Great One, revealing that the Gods Knights are actually aware of Imu's existence. And that just surprised me, I guess. I would have assumed that only the Gorosei know of Imu's existence, but it seems that perhaps the Gods Knights, or maybe only some of the Gods Knights, know of Imu's existence. Perhaps maybe only the top fighters of the Gods Knights know, or perhaps maybe only the Fagarland family know that Imu exists. But I mean, still, I was actually really surprised to know that he exists. But Garland comes to the Gorosei and he tells them that he found something that he believes will please Imu, and that the next hunt must be on God Valley. And so I guess I wanted to hear what he's talking about. I don't think it's a devil fruit, and if it's not, it's definitely not a regular devil fruit. Like, devil fruits just seem kind of above Imu. So unless it's like maybe it's a devil fruit that it's like, you know, like one of the ones the Gorosei have. Although I think it's possible that the Gorosei got their powers kind of bestowed upon them, being that Imu can kind of demote them, and how he just killed Saturn and just demoted him and just smoked him. I think, you know, it seems like their powers are kind of linked in a way. So the only other thing that I can think of, because I don't think it's going to be any of the devil fruits that the Gorosei have. If it is a devil fruit, I can only assume that it's the you know, the Nika Nika fruit. That's the only thing I can think of. And if it's not that, then I just don't think it's a devil fruit. I think it's probably something else entirely. And the chapter ends with the birth of twins Shanks and Shamrock. So I'm excited to see what Garland was talking about though, and why the next hunt must be held at God Valley. And hopefully it's explained in the next chapter. But that's it. That's all from my review for these last 4 or 5 chapters, however many I did. I'm not sure if this will be a weekly thing. I think sometimes Oda just drops chapters where it's just like there's not much to say. So I don't want to guarantee a video with every chapter, but we'll see where it goes. If I like the chapter, I'll make a video. If I don't like the chapter, probably won't make a video, and I'll just focus more on Vagabond. Couldn't put too many images or any images in this video actually. You know, we all know what happened to Totally Not Mark, and if this channel goes somewhere, I do not want like my everything, like, you know, from back now to just be like fucking eviscerated. And so, you know, nothing like that, but it's just not gonna happen with pretty much any Shonen Jump property. No way. But you know, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.